Alright, today's knife video is brought to you by my buddy Phil, aka Mapreek, the knife modifying wizard. And while he didn't necessarily sponsor this video, he did let me borrow this beautiful, beautiful knife to kind of play with and look at over the last 2 weeks so that I could share it with you guys. So thanks, Phil. Definitely appreciate it. And the knife in question, we are taking a look at the Jerome Hovaere Autobahn. And if I butchered Jerome's name, I do apologize. He can thank the American education system and 4 years of high school French for that. So anyhow, this beautiful knife is an integral, which means that it is one piece of solid titanium that makes up the handle. Typically you'll have two pieces that have been kind of milled out, shaped, and then they're held together by screws, but this has no screws whatsoever, aside from essentially the pivot which holds the blade in, but everything else is just one solid piece of titanium. So this video has honestly, kind of preparing for it and thinking about it, it's been a bit overwhelming. Oops, sorry about that. The knife and the influences, the influence or the design of this knife was influenced by the Baja style of design and architecture, and also a 1980s, I believe, Baja style car is what Jerome said. And not being familiar with, design theory and art history anymore, I feel like I might miss out on a lot of key features of this knife, but perhaps those who are better versed in that style of design, will be able to simply really enjoy the details and the homage to the design, essentially. So anyways, let me just go ahead and break it down as a knife, essentially, and I will let the high def do most of the talking that I miss. So anyways, let's start out with the blade. It's a CPM D2. It's a cryo heat treated blade with a hand rubbed satin. As you can see, it's a Wharncliffe with just a tiny bit of belly, but it's a quite beautiful blade, and it mirrors the handle of the knife a little bit too. I mean, you can see the design language, the fluidity going through it. And with a name like the Autobahn, he said it's, the unregulated or the unlimited speeds are part of the influence as well. And I suppose if we imagine that it is moving at a high speed, all you're going to see is kind of the blur. So I won't make any fun car noises, but I think most of you can probably see that. So again, CPM D2, very, very good use steel, very hard use steel, tool steel, and very sharp. So very well done in that regard. Here's the maker's mark. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but that is his mark. So the deployment method is this thumb stud here. This thumb disc, and it's a squared thumb disc. Now this knife, the thought that kept coming to mind when I've had this knife is really the concept of form over function, or form and function, essentially, with this knife. And what I mean by that is there are three things I think that we typically look for when we're buying a knife. First is form. How does it look? Does it appeal to us? Is it something that we enjoy? Is it something that we want? Then there's the aspect of function. How well does it do its intended task? And as a knife, that's essentially to cut. And then I think there's also the interaction that we have with the knife. Is it fun to open and to close? Is it fun to use? Does it bring us enjoyment in the use of its function, essentially? So with this knife, I think it was designed or created essentially with form in mind. Function was almost secondary. That's not to say that it lacks in any regard as a knife. It's simply, in today's kind of tactical knife market, it's how fast does it open, how fast does it close, is it one-handed operation only, does it drop on itself, freely, and so forth. And those are the things that I think a lot of the discussions are based upon. But I think what Jerome has done here is said, how can I take this style of design, this type of art, and how can I make it into a knife? And really none of his knives, there's really no two the same. He sent me pictures of another Autobahn that he has done, and he's only done 3 total, and it looks very, very different than this one. It had zirconium inlays. So I think essentially every knife that he does is a one-off, is a one-of-a-kind knife. And, and that again adds to the exclusivity, to the beauty. And really, if you have this knife, I think this is another key element that you need to have with it, because it should be on your shelf, it should be open, and it should look like this. This is how you correctly store this knife. If you're feeling a bit daring, you can probably just go ahead and flip it around and display the other side of the knife. And be it the show side, be it the lock side, there is not one side that is more beautiful than the other. In fact, I think that the way the pocket clip integrates into the design actually adds to the beauty. So I prefer this side to the quote-unquote show side. So anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked. I'm talking about the design and how beautiful the knife is, but again, I think that's what the primary purpose was, and with this series of knives at least. And I think Jerome's work as a whole, I think that's quite prevalent, is that form comes first in the equation, followed by function. And anyhow, so let's get back to the knife. So here we are with some of the detail. It is a custom pivot here, and he does have a pivot tool, but it is not supplied. These beautiful grooves cut into the handle with some lines intersecting, and it's mirrored on this side as well. And again, if I was more familiar with this type of art and architecture, I think there potentially could be terms or ways that would be better to explain this, but as it is, as such as a knife, I think that works for now. Here we are on the back side. Again, we have the same influences, or the same kind of line cut through here, and the same groove. And as you can see, it goes through onto the lock bar as well. And look how beautiful that lock bar is. There's minimal gap. It doesn't distract from the design at all. And then look at this over travel stop here. This is a small little metal pillar essentially. And again, I mean, it's with that kind of modern architecture that I think the Bajas has given us today, or definitely played a key role in. Again, it doesn't distract at all. In fact, it adds to the beauty of the design. Yeah, it's quite remarkable. Pocket clip as well, just a beautifully executed titanium custom clip here, and again, it carries the same design language that you see through here. Hard lines that intersect, beautifully well done. Even the lock bar cutout here, again, it adds to the design language. I mean, this right here is just quite remarkable. So again, let's get back to the knife. I keep getting sidetracked. As far as the function goes, this isn't a tactical knife. This isn't something you can open quickly. If you jam your thumb right down here into that very corner where it's a little bit sharp, then you can kick it open at the expense of your thumb. You probably won't see it. Doesn't matter. Anyways, so if you want to try to open this fast and treat it like a tactical knife, your finger's going to take a little bit of a beating. This knife is designed to open like that, nice and slow and purposeful, and it just glides right through. And this does use phosphor bronze washers. Due to the nature of monolithic construction or solid one-piece construction, it's quite difficult to get bearings down into such a little space. And speaking of which, let's take a look at just the tolerances, just how close that is. There's just such a minimal gap there. I had a little 3x5 card, and I tried to slide it down in between here on the sides, and it wouldn't fit. I mean, a standard thin piece of paper will go in between there, but just very, very high tolerances, very tight tolerances. So, and if I had better lining, I could show you, but even the inside here, we've seen from some custom makers that when they mill out this portion on a monolithic blade that they leave the inside essentially unfinished and rough looking. The inside here is beautifully finished, and again, he doesn't have any smart technology. He uses a hand mill and things of that nature, so just take my word for it, it's quite impressive. Now, there is some jimping up on top here, although it doesn't really offer any meaningful traction. But again, as a design element, it's quite beautiful. Ties into that 1980s car vibe. It could be the tread on the tires and so forth. I mean, this could be a rim or a wheel, which is what I believe was inspired by, but the ergonomics are quite good. As you can see, everything has been beautifully radiused here on the sides, which gives it a very, very comfortable grip in the hand. You have a 2-finger grip here, kind of a large choil area, and then on the back, as you can see, it's very ergonomic, fits into the hand quite well. So 2 fingers, wrap it around. I do have extra large hands, and I'm able to get on there just fine. And then my thumb naturally sits on top of that thumb disc, which works well. Again, it doesn't offer a high amount of traction necessarily, but it does give it a nice place to rest, and I would feel comfortable doing very hard cuts with this knife, although I don't think I would ever do any type of stabbing cuts, but you know, that's not what this knife is for. Again, I wouldn't call it a tactical knife per se. But lockup is very strong. I believe it's about 50%, and something else that I thought was quite interesting, and I could be wrong on this here, but as you can see, this is where the titanium lock bar comes into contact with the blade. And as you can see, it has a surface here that it contacts, and essentially it contacts the back of the blade as well, so it locks the entire titanium lock bar into that space there. So I know a compression lock essentially does something similar from the back, but when it locks in, let's see if I can show you, it's making contact here underneath, and then it also has a portion in the back. So it really is, it's being held in place by 2 different contact points, and so the chances of this ever failing, I think, is beyond 0. It is less than 0. Just amazing lockup. And you know, I don't know that I've seen that before on a locking interface for a titanium frame lock, but it just uses 2 different contact points there, I believe. So anyways, perhaps there's another knife out there, and if someone wants to tell me what it is, then the comment section is ready and waiting. But anyways, weight is good, size is good. I mean, it's a beautiful gentleman's folder art knife. I think that Jerome's influences are just spectacular. You know, when you think of art knives today, or at least when I was thinking of art knives, I mean, the things that popped in my head were polished blades and shiny Damascus or Mokutai, you know, just ornaments essentially. But this is an art knife in its design prowess. I mean, yeah, I've been a bit taken aback, and again, I feel like I'm just leaving a lot on the table here, so let's just do a close-up look and let you really get a good look at just the details here of this blade. So, anyhow, Jerome's, I believe his current wait time is somewhere probably around a year or so. And you can follow him on Instagram. I believe it's Torpen29, Torpen29, and I'll put a link down below in case that is wrong. But anyways, great maker to follow. He does a lot of work in progress pictures up on Instagram. You can also follow him on Facebook, and he's very responsive, very kind to emails as well. He was very kind to respond to some of my emails. So anyways, let's do some quick size comparisons. I have 2 other integrals here for some comparing pleasure, and they are both from Italy. So, and the camera angle is going to be a bit deceiving, but the Lion Steel SR1 here is certainly bigger. Camera angle aside, Comes out probably 1/2 inch on the front if we have the backs side to side. Anyways, so camera's about to die. That's pretty much it. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this here and to just really kind of soak in his work. And I would definitely follow him, check him out, and just kind of see what he's working on in the future, because I think it's very much worth your time. So thanks for watching, guys, and hope this was helpful in some degree. Take care.